Alright guys, today's the day. I'm going to be putting up the off-grid water system for the little cabin, and I'm going to be walking you guys through all of the steps on how to do this yourself if you decide you wanted to build something similar. I'm also going to be showing you guys all the parts individually, explaining where you can get them and roughly what I paid for everything too. So with that being said, let's get started. Alright, so really quickly before we get into it, I do want to explain kind of generally how this is going to work. So obviously we've got some gutters right here. I'm going to be hanging them up. What we're going to do is we're going to run all the water that these gutters are catching, obviously from the rain, into one of these barrels. And then in between this barrel and that barrel, we're going to have a bunch of filters, hoses, check valves, you name it. And after all the filtration happens, we should have a barrel over here with clean water that we can use a water pump to extract into smaller 5-gallon barrels. Obviously, we can use that for drinking, showering, whatever we need it for. All right, so to start off here, we have 2 gutters. I went to Home Depot to buy these, and I think the whole piece, this was all one piece when I first bought it, I think the whole thing was like $8 or something. So it was very cheap to get this gutter. I drive a sedan, so I wasn't gonna be able to fit the full length of the gutter in my car. So what I did, I took one of their hacksaws, I just cut it down. They charged me the same price, obviously. It's still the price for one piece, and I brought it home. This piece right here is going to be your downspout connector. The way that this works is you'll attach your gutters to the ends here. You see they kind of line up. I'll actually put one on, but I don't want to put it on the cut side because it's a little more uneven. So they just go on like that. And on the other side here, you can connect the other one. Since my cut is on this side, it's actually perfect. I'll throw this one on the right-hand side and it should be clean. Now in the middle here, you'll notice we have this little droplet. That's what these are for. So this is your downspout. This is what's actually going to connect to this section here. It's a little tight. And that's how that's gonna look right there. So you've got your gutters. Obviously they're gonna be collecting the water. Everything is going to meet here at the center. You're going to have a slight skew on the gutters to kind of help the water travel that way. And then this downspout right here, I'm going to put a screen on this, and we're just going to go ahead and connect that to the opening of one of those barrels. All right, so this is what a gutter spike looks like right here. It's 5-inch gutter spike. These are very straightforward. Once the gutter is in position where you want it, you're going to throw that in here. Just like so. It'll actually stretch the gutter out a little bit. And you can see there's a nail here. Obviously, just take your drill, screwdriver, whatever you got, and launch that through the beams. So, super straightforward on these. For the downspout, we have connectors that look like this. Again, very straightforward. You're just gonna take a screw, drill it into a beam, and can just snap that right on there. Pretty easy. All these parts are super cheap. I think these are all like $2 a piece, $3 a piece at Home Depot. So again, very inexpensive. When you're lining this up, like I said earlier, you want to have kind of a downtrend going. This is just to help the water actually get to the downspout itself. When I put the other gutter in, I'm going to have the downtrend going the opposite way slightly, and that should help even both sides out pretty nicely. Now here, you'll notice we don't have much room after this slip. So what you can do is you can put something behind the gutters. But really quickly, I'm actually going to put the spikes into this because I think it opens it up a little more. And we're going to see if we get a little bit more catch. All right, so that does seem to have opened it up a little bit. Let's see if we get a little bit more surface area here. All right, so now we're over. That actually looks great to me. A little bit more. Should be good. All right, guys, we went ahead and got the gutter in. Actually looks pretty good. Now Like I said, the downspout is really easy. This just pushes in. I'm actually going to take the side that isn't cut. This just pushes in real nice and simple. And I'm actually not going to push it in all the way right now because I'm going to put in these brackets. So I'm going to kind of gauge where they need to go by eye, to be honest. Not too worried if it's a little crooked. I'll put one right there. All right, so it's actually pretty straight, not perfect. So I'm back inside now. The next step here is going to be to drill some holes into the 55-gallon barrels, and we're going to throw these on them. Basically, this is just a hose attachment. Screw that right on, and you'll be good to go. Now, in order to make this work, you are going to need a hole saw. And as you can see, this one goes around this section here, the threads on the inside, but it is smaller, hopefully you guys can see, than the rubber. So we should be all right with this hole saw here. We're just drilling through plastic, so should be very easy. Now we will run into a problem with these. I'm going to be drilling holes into the bottom of the barrels. So we have to figure out how to get this thing through the hole we drill. But obviously we can't insert it this way because the hole is going to be smaller than this. So we've got to come in from the inside. Now I've got a trick to do that. Over here I've got some yo-yo string. If you guys are wondering why I have a ton of yo-yo string, all right, so we're back outside with all the tools you need here. But there is one thing I want to point out before we start drilling. Something to pay attention to here is on these 55-gallon barrels, one of these holes is actually a little bit smaller than the other one. So if you look here, this plastic piece will not fit through this one. If we go here though, it fits just fine. All right. Look at that. It did not fall through. That's beautiful. I probably could have done it a little lower. I'm not gonna lie. I probably should have done it a little lower, honestly. All right, so I've decided, since both of these are gonna end up getting cut anyways, I'm going to draw this hole a little lower. Make sure this is the right side real quick. Fits in nicely. Okay, that one did fall through, kind of like I thought it would. So what we're gonna do is open this cap back up, see if we might be able to get it out. All right, there we go. Wasn't too bad. Did get some dirt on here. I'm gonna have to clean it off, but there we go. Obviously, we want this to go in from the inside. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this yo-yo string. I tied two together just to make sure I have the length I need. Although I think one was actually more than fine. All right, so for this, it's very straightforward. You're gonna take your yo-yo string, you're gonna run it through the adapter. Now in this case, you guys can choose whether you wanna have your rubber on the inside or the outside. I'm gonna tie a knot at the end here. Might tie a couple just to make sure it's tight. And I'm gonna fish this through. So here we go, I'll pop this open. Should fit right in, perfect. You do not wanna drop the string here. Might help if you have two people. But right now I think Sela's actually washing clothes. So, should be able to get it. All right, and that's it. It's that simple. All right, so the rest of this process is going to be super simple. What I have here is a water pump. This is going to be pulling the water from the main rain barrel and pushing it into our purified barrel. In order to purify the water, I'm going to be using a sediment filter, and I have these RV water filters, which are pretty much all-purpose filters. So with this, we should be good to go. These last 3 months apiece, and I have 4 total, so that's a year's worth. And I believe this one right here is rated for 6 months. Pretty straightforward. I also have a ton of hoses. You guys will notice that all the connections on all of these filters and the water pump are actually all hose connections. So it's super straightforward to set all this up. Just got to put it all in order. The last thing is going to be the power situation. So we will have to bring that little battery outside whenever we're ready to actually pull water from one barrel to the other. But it's pretty straightforward. And I'm actually also going to end up building some kind of housing for this in the next few days as well, just to make sure that when it does rain, water isn't getting onto any of these parts, including the water pump. But for now, we're just going to set it up as is, just to kind of show you how it would work. And then, like I said, I'll come back after it's rained and I have the other connection put in, and I'll show you guys the working system. All right, so I've got everything outside, and I actually forgot I had this container here. So I'm gonna use this for the box. I'm just gonna drill a hole in the side to insert a hose. One on the other side too, actually. This one. And two. Should be a little arrow. All right, so water is flowing this way. So we're gonna want the water pump to sit like this in that case. This is perfect. That's about as tight as that's gonna go. The next thing is gonna be the sediment filter. I believe it hooks on like this. I'm not actually sure. And I'm on it like this so it's upright. It could definitely look better, but should be fine. We'll take the final hose here, or not the final hose, but the final hose that's going to be inside of the box. All the filters are hooked up. Just got to run final connections here. Hopefully this fits. There we go. This hose here. Just simply connect to this over here. All right, so that's what it looks like all set up. Obviously for the sides, water can still get in here. There's big holes. I have this waterproof tape, so I'm going to put a ton of this around that, maybe some rubber in there too, and we should be good, because I know this top is super solid. Water does not get in here. We've had this out here for a while. It's rained a few times and never seen water inside of it, so got a lot of faith in this. We'll test it out as soon as we get rain. I think on Sunday is the next day. Hey guys, I don't know if you can see this, but finally got some rain, running the pump, and it's working great. Got about 15 gallons, I think, once we're done here. Still got a little bit left to go. right, so I want to do a quick overview of everything really quick and kind of explain some of the issues we did run into, because it wasn't a perfect system. It's still not. As you guys can see over here on the downspout, I actually had to 3D print this part here. It took me 2 hours. We did this literally right before it rained, so I didn't have enough time to print an extension from this to this. But as you can see, this covers the hole perfectly. What we did was we just took this piece of wood, laid it right there to kind of push the water in the right direction, and it worked fine. Now I am going to pull the printer back out and actually print the rest of the connection here so we don't have to use this piece of wood. Obviously it's not ideal, but it did work for us. Now the other thing is actually this connection here. We did have a very small leak. There was about a drop of water coming out every second or so. And you know, it doesn't sound like a lot, but over time that does add up. So we just added some caulk and it's not leaking anymore. Now over here, I did forget to seal these holes up. Hopefully you guys can see that. A little bit of water did get inside. It wasn't very much. I had to use a towel to dry it up before I ran the pump. There really wasn't much. It was just a little bit kind of in the corner here. Nothing had actually touched the pump, but obviously we don't want water in here. This pump is non-submersible, which means you don't want any water getting on it. So I'm gonna have to go back and make sure that those are sealed on both sides. Somehow no water got in on this side. It only seemed to have seeped in from this side, and like I said, it was very little. We're just over the spigot. Now this one, I actually didn't need to put any caulk on, and it's not leaking at all. It's over. It's probably about 15 gallons right here. Now, since we're here, I also want to point something else out. I did actually add check valves to both of the barrels. As you can see, there's one over there too. And all these do is make sure that water isn't flowing when you don't want it to. So right now, this is closed. If I open it, you're gonna see water is gonna start to come out. We don't want that, obviously. But it's just so that you don't have a bunch of water pressure going through your filters and all that when you don't want it to, right? So I'm going to keep this off. Whenever I need to refill a 5-gallon barrel, we can either use the water pump itself to pull water out of this into the other ones, or I can just use this check valve here, open it up. Obviously we want to get this thing off of the ground so that we can comfortably drain this, but it's super straightforward. All right guys, so that is the full breakdown for our off-grid water system. Hopefully that helps you guys. Hopefully you guys learned something. If it did help you out, I would really appreciate it if you guys leave a like and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Also, if you have any questions or anything, feel free to leave them in the comments. I do respond to comments. Sometimes it does take me a little bit. But yeah, with that being said, I'll let you guys go. Peace.